I am 87 years old, and I still get out of bed every morning without my knees begging me to stop. But please listen closely, because that was not always my truth. It took many years to find this peace. For nearly 15 years, pain was the very first thing I felt. It was like a heavy, cold blanket that settled over me before my feet even touched the floor. Every movement felt like a mountain to climb. My joints felt like the hinges on an old garden gate that hadn't been oiled in decades, stiff, resistant, and crying out with every tiny movement. It was a lonely kind of struggle, wasn't it? I did everything my doctor told me to do. I was a good student. I attended every appointment and followed every single instruction with hope in my heart, waiting for a relief that didn't come. I took what they prescribed and I followed every instruction, and yet the pain stayed. It sat there with me day after day like an unwanted guest that I simply couldn't ask to leave. Now, don't misunderstand me. It wasn't because my doctors failed me. Not at all. They are wonderful, caring people doing their very best with the limited time they have for each of us. But you see, there were things happening inside my body that no 15-minute appointment had enough time to address. Things that required a different kind of looking and a much deeper kind of listening. Today, I want to tell you what I found. Not instead of my medical care, but alongside it, like a companion helping me find my way back home to a body that feels like mine again. Because at 87, I move better than I did at 72. I can walk to the mailbox without a second thought, and my heart feels light. Someone needs to know that this is possible for them too. I found that the morning fire in our joints can be calmed, but most people are doing the exact opposite of what they should be. It's a secret hidden in plain sight, just waiting for us to notice it. I remember the day clearly. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in my early 60s, both knees, my lower back, and that right hip I had been favoring ever since a silly fall years before. We don't realize how much we ask of our bodies until they start to whisper back in a language of aches. My body was telling me a story I wasn't ready to hear just yet. My doctor was thorough, she was kind, and she gave me real options. Medication, physical therapy, and a promise that if things got worse, we would talk about what came next. I followed the plan. I was not a woman who argued with her physician. I wanted to be a good student of my own health. But I noticed something after a few years of doing everything right. The medication took the sharpest edges off the pain, but the deep grinding ache that lived in my knees every single morning, that one stayed. It became my constant, quiet companion. Slowly, without me even noticing, my world began to shrink. I stopped going to my neighbor's house for those lovely Sunday dinners because the walk across the street simply felt too long. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To start saying no to the things you love because your body is saying not today. You don't see the walls closing in at first. I stopped tending my tomato plants. Kneeling in the soil was no longer something my body forgave. I missed the smell of the earth on my hands, but the cost was too high. I sat at family gatherings and watched other people dance. I smiled, of course, and I clapped. But inside I was telling myself that this was simply what getting old looked like. I believed the story that the body gives for a while and then slowly it takes back. I had made my peace with that story. I thought the book of my movement was closing. Then my neighbor Doris walked up my porch steps one Tuesday afternoon. She was older than me, but she did it without even reaching for the railing. Not once. I stared at her feet and then at her face. I had to know. Doris was 79 years old then. She had been dealing with her arthritis even longer than I had. I had watched her struggle with it for years, seen her wince at the same stares I feared. We were like two old ships weathered by the same storms, both of us anchored by the weight in our joints. I knew her pain as well as I knew my own. So when she climbed those steps like they were nothing, no hesitation, no reaching for the wood, I just stood in my doorway and stared. I said, "Doris, what on earth happened to your knees?" She laughed. "A sound like a morning bell?" She said, "Nothing happened to them, dear. I just stopped waiting for them to fix themselves and started giving them something to work with." It was such a simple thought, wasn't it? We wait for the rain to stop, but sometimes we need to be the ones to bring the water to the roots. She came inside, sat right here at my kitchen table, and we talked for almost 2 hours. She wasn't telling me to leave my doctor or ignore the medicine. Not at all. She was telling me what her doctor simply had not had the time to walk her through in a short appointment. She was teaching me the language my body had been trying to speak. I didn't have a notebook handy, so I found an old envelope in my kitchen drawer. I grabbed a pencil and I wrote down every single thing she told me. Every word felt like a lifeline. I wrote until the back of that envelope was covered in lead. I didn't know then that those scribbles would become the map that led me out of the woods of my own pain. That envelope is the reason I am sitting here talking to you today. It was the start of a journey I never thought I'd be able to take at my age. And the very first thing I wrote at the top of that envelope, it wasn't a pill and it wasn't a cream. The first thing Doris mentioned was something I had never once thought to connect to my joints. It was a simple mineral, something we all have but often lose. Magnesium. She told me her doctor had tested her levels and found she was significantly deficient. It was as if her body was running on an empty tank without her even knowing it. Magnesium deficiency is so very common, especially for us women over 60. Stress and age have a way of depleting what our diets don't always replenish. It's like a quiet leak in a garden hose. Magnesium is the body's natural relaxer. It's involved in how our muscles let go, how our nerves send their messages, and even how our body manages its own internal fires. When those levels are low, the whole system starts to feel tighter. Every ache feels louder, and our joints become more reactive, more sensitive to the weight of the day. I brought it up at my very next appointment. I was nervous, but my doctor listened. She tested me, confirmed I was low, and together we added a supplement to my existing care. It wasn't a replacement for anything else I was doing, but a new friend walking alongside the rest of my care. A small step that felt like a quiet promise. Within about 6 weeks, I felt a shift. The morning stiffness, that heavy blanket I told you about, it began to ease. It didn't disappear completely, but it eased enough that I truly noticed. I could move my fingers with a little more grace, and my knees didn't scream quite so loudly when I stood up. I was starting to feel the oil reaching the hinges again. But the second thing Doris told me had nothing to do with a supplement or a special program. It was even simpler than that, and yet it was just as powerful. It was water. Doris told me she had been mildly dehydrated for years without even realizing. The cartilage in your joints, that wonderful tissue that cushions bone against bone, is made mostly of water. When you aren't drinking enough, that cushioning becomes thinner and less effective. It's like a pillow losing its feathers. Think of your joints like a sponge. When a sponge is dry, it's hard and brittle. But when it's full of water, it becomes soft and bouncy again, ready to protect whatever it touches. Our joints are the same. At our age, the thirst signal starts to weaken. It's like a doorbell that doesn't ring quite as loudly as it used to. We often fall behind on our hydration long before we ever actually feel dry. Doris told me she started keeping water close to her all through the day. She drank it deliberately, with intention, not waiting for that quiet doorbell of thirst to arrive. She was feeding her garden before it wilted. She said within just a few weeks, her joints felt different by the late afternoon. There was less of that grinding, less of that hollow aching sensation that usually builds after hours of being on your feet. The third thing she shared was about food, but she didn't say it the way most people do. She didn't tell me to go on a strict diet or give up everything I loved. She had a much kinder way. She said, just pay attention to what your body argues with after you eat it. It was about listening to the whispers of inflammation, the way our joints speak to us after a meal. It was an invitation, not a rule. She started adding more of the foods that research connects to lower inflammation: fatty fish, dark leafy greens, berries, and she started using turmeric in her cooking and olive oil for everything. And very quietly, she reduced the things that seemed to make her joints feel angrier within a few hours of eating them. She stopped inviting the guests that didn't treat her body with respect. I started looking at my own plate differently that very night. Doris found that processed sugar was the loudest offender for her. She was never perfect about avoiding it. She told me that plainly, but she was consistent enough. She understood that it wasn't about being perfect, it was about being steady, and slowly her body began to respond. The grinding in her joints started to soften into something quieter. But the fourth thing Doris told me is the one I still think about most, even now. It wasn't about what she was eating, but about what she was carrying in her heart. She said, "Do you know what feeds inflammation more than almost anything you put in your mouth?" I shook my head, and then she said it: unrelieved stress. She had learned that chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated in the body over time. It's like a quiet, persistent pressure that never lets the system truly rest or heal. And that elevated cortisol worsens inflammation throughout your entire system, including in the joints. It's like a wind that keeps the internal fires burning far longer than they should. So Doris started protecting her peace the same way she protected her sleep. Less noise before bed, more quiet in the mornings, and more space for her soul to breathe. She spent less time in conversations that left her feeling hollowed out or drained. It sounds small, I know, like a tiny adjustment to a sail. But when I started doing the same, something in my body began to settle in a way I had not felt in years. The tension started to leave my muscles and my joints followed. We often look for the answers in a bottle, but sometimes the most powerful medicine is the quiet we create for ourselves. Our joints are listening to our hearts. I am 87 years old, and last spring I did something I thought was behind me forever. I got back down into my garden, not the way I did at 50, but enough. Oh, quite enough. I planted tomatoes. I knelt down carefully, feeling the earth between my fingers, and I did what I came to do. I didn't rush. I just was. And then the moment I had feared for years arrived. I had to get back up, and I did it all on my own. My joints didn't beg, and my spirit didn't falter. My granddaughter was watching from the porch. She didn't say a word. She didn't offer to help. She just smiled. I think she had been watching me shrink for years without knowing how to name it. None of what I found replaced my medical care. I still see my doctor. I still follow her guidance. And every decision I made with her knowledge. But what I added changed the quality of my life. If you have been quietly accepting a level of pain you were never told you had to keep, I want you to hear this. There may be more available to you than the last appointment had time to cover. You don't have to stop anything. You may just be able to add something. That is what Doris gave me on a Tuesday afternoon over a kitchen table. Not a magic cure, just a door she had found that I had not seen yet. If this spoke to something you have been carrying quietly, stay with this channel. Every week, they share what has helped seniors like us live with less pain and more of ourselves still intact. Subscribe so you don't miss what is coming next. We are all on this path together, and no one should have to walk it in silence or in shadows. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me where your pain lives and how long you have been carrying it. I am listening. I'll see you in the next one.